Hi, third graders. It's Miss Peterson. I hope you guys had a great weekend and maybe you guys were outside this weekend, did something fun with your family. Today, we are going to talk about some fun things. We're going to talk about what was happening in modern America. Now, you guys have learned about Latin America and Central America. You've learned about important civil rights, and I know that you guys will really enjoy this lesson because there's lots of things that I think that you guys will actually remember and use in your everyday life. So I first want to start with this symbol right here. I know that you guys love Miss Peterson's drawings and artwork. This right here is supposed to be my best version of drawing a space shuttle. In 1969, there was a space shuttle called Apollo 11. Also a very famous movie about what happened. If you've ever heard of the saying, Houston, we have a problem, that comes from that, because once they were in space, the astronauts had a little bit of difficulty and they had to call everyone back in the United States and on Earth, and they were based out of Houston. And they said, Houston, we have a problem. So this is kind of what kickstarts our lesson today. This is when the space program in NASA was really big. And I know that there have been lots of other space programs afterwards, but this is one of the most famous ones. Let's go over here to one of my better drawings too. This happened 2 years before Apollo 11. This invention was invented in 1967. I'm sure most to all of you have this in your kitchen or your house, maybe it's somewhere else, but this is actually a microwave. So before then, they used stoves and ovens to heat up food. And in 1967, the microwave was invented. And something that was kind of popular during this time was actually something called TV dinners. It was also around the time that houses got televisions in their house, and it was black and white to start with, not like the color that we have now. And it was popular to eat dinner in front of the TV. Maybe you do that now, maybe you don't. And there would be microwavable meals that you could put into the microwave, take out, and then enjoy in front of the TV. So TV dinners were actually really, really popular during this time. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is one that I am sure all of you have either seen, maybe you used, your parents I'm sure have it. In 1973, the cell phone was invented. Now, it wasn't until a couple of years after that the cell phone became smaller and smaller and smaller to what we have today, where it's just very little. But the cell phone actually started out the size of a suitcase, and they would carry it around. Business people would go from meetings to meetings. They would even have cell phones attached into the car. So what we have now is a very modern development from what we first got in 1973. Then in 1984, the Macintosh computer came out. This also is the start of the big computer industry boom. Lots of you know Apple products, and lots of you know who Steve Jobs is too. This was a big development during this time. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs were all very important people during this big computer boom. As you can see, they didn't start out with laptops. They started out with a screen and a keyboard and a mouse. Maybe you have that still at home, a desktop computer, or maybe you have laptops. Laptops didn't come out until a couple of years after. So we really got our computer boom during the 80s. Then, this will be on your quiz. I want you to remember that I talk about a car. So if you watch this video, then you're going to do fine on your quiz on Friday. In 1989, the Lexus car came out. Now, Lexus is one of the more luxurious car brands. We had cars before 1999. We had cars in World War II and before that too. But in 1989, this is when luxurious cars were coming out. And that is one of the brands that became very popular. If you remember that a car is something I talk about, you will do fine. That is a question on your quiz on Friday. Let's go ahead and look at the timeline with what we talked about. So in 1967, I talked about the microwave and the TV dinners that were happening. In 1969 was the space program with Apollo 11. In 1973, the cell phone came out. That was a very big invention. Then in 1984, the computer boom industry happened with the Macintosh as the example with Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And then in 1989, fancy cars were coming out and people were starting to buy cars that were a little bit more fancy than your normal average car. And then just to give you guys a reference, 4 years later, Miss Peterson was born. So I was born in the early 90s. I was born in 1993. You can probably do the math with how old I am. And this is really what was happening in modern America. It's the era that I was born in. So we're going to talk more about this in the next couple weeks, but these are just introductory things that I wanted to talk about. As a reminder, on your quiz on Friday, I will say, what is one of the inventions that Miss Peterson talked about? And the answer is car. If you watch this video and follow along in directions, you'll do totally fine. The answer right here is car for your quiz on Friday. I'll see you guys soon. I hope you guys have a great Monday.